And we're back. We got 120 hits. We are awesome. We are special human beings.
Well, we're more popular than we thought we would be, which isn't saying a lot.
Well, I'm pretty popular. I'm more surprised that you're popular. But let's not talk about that. Let's start our conversation with some NFL games. Listen, something happened last weekend. We can talk about it later. The Super Bowl is here.
No. Wait a second. This part of the podcast is not a sports podcast.
We talk about sports.
This part of the podcast is an online cooking podcast.
We don't want to cook,
more
Joe.
Specifically, like an online eating podcast.
No one wants to see us eat, Joe.
In this part of the podcast, you and I have to eat some significant crow. I have to eat about 50% of crow.
I'm a vegetarian.
Yeah. There are many pigs who have died to prove that that's not true. But I have to eat a little bit of crow. You have to eat a lot of crow because we both got beat last weekend at the AFC NFC Championship games.
Listen, can I just make this real point? I would just like to say that I missed on points.
You missed on picks.
No, I missed on points. If the Baltimore Ravens kicker had any balls to make a 30-yard kick, I wouldn't have to be eating crow.
I wish I had the recording of Ray Lewis talking about this because I cannot replicate Ray's total psychosis when he talks about this kind of thing. But even Ray Lewis has said that that's not the kicker's fault, and he's like, you have to accept that and move on as a man. And
I am not a man.
As a man, you have to accept.
I am not a man. I am a
Look, long story short, we were both wrong. I was half wrong. You were 100% wrong. The one person in this room who was not wrong was my 9-year-old daughter, Zoe. Zoe, say hello.
Hi.
All right, Zoe, before we're going to talk about Eric and I's failures in the NFL games at great length later in the podcast, and Eric and I will do our picks later. But so we can get this over with and figure out who's really going to win the Super Bowl, you have to do your Super Bowl picks. Now, the teams that are in the Super Bowl are the New York Giants and the New England Patriots. That's right. And you picked last time on the strength of mascots. I don't know if that's what you're going to continue to do. But right here at the start of the podcast, you go ahead and tell us who's your pick to win the Super Bowl.
I'm going to go with the Patriots.
You're going to go with the Patriots. Why is that?
Because I saw how the Patriots and the Giants play, and I think the Patriots are better.
Now, you realize that in analyzing the actual game, you run the risk of violating your own process for determining who should win.
And also, the Patriots, they have cannons, and they can shoot the Giants.
So the Patriots are better armed, so they will win. All right, there you have it. From the mouths, not of babes. And the crowd goes wild. Wow, our first sound effects here on MissedOnPoints.
Oh.
The crowd goes wild. Zoe has picked the Patriots to win.
Listen, let me throw some haterade on the situation. I'm offended, and I'm gonna tell you why. I was beaten by a 9-year-old girl.
That's right, beaten soundly
by a 9-year-old.
River-sided entirely.
Listen, the crew at Bank of America are a very mean bunch of people. And I've been constantly reminded of the fact that I've lost to a 9-year-old girl.
You should be constantly reminded of that fact.
I'm morally offended that she was able to continue to pick games.
We're taking Zoe to Vegas, kids. Podcast's going on the road.
Can you imagine if Zoe hit sevens 52 straight times?
Zoe's going to hit the 9-game parlay, and we're going to be rich. Rich, I tells you.
And then I'll buy my mom a house and spend the rest on the PCP.
How do you get money out of this? She's my daughter. She's too young to be betting. I'll have to place those bets.
Well, clearly, I mean, she's on this side of the table.
All right. Well, Zoe will be back in our post-Super Bowl podcast, whatever that is,
candy.
to review her pick. But we'll talk about the rest of the NFL a little bit later. We have some other things to talk about first.
I was beaten by a 9-year-old girl. All right.
I can.
Whatever. All right. So we're going to actually start with the NBA. We could start with the Falcons, but Matt Ryan sucks. You all know this.
Stop.
Listen, the people believe in me. All right. We are currently going to discuss the insanity of the NBA right now. The condensed season has thrown a severe monkey wrench into things. Players are getting hurt left and right. And I'm going to see if Joe can guess who the top team in the NBA is right now.
Well, I probably would have known this, even though I haven't watched a ton of games that aren't the feature games. Mm-hmm. But I happen to know that the team with the most wins in the NBA, as we sit here, is the Chicago Bulls.
Okay.
Now, what I never would have guessed in a million years, and if you're listening at home and you have not looked at the NBA standings, if you're like me, if you're a casual fan until the end of the Super Bowl.
Or an Atlanta Hawks fan, which means you're also casual.
Which means you're not only casual, but suicidal. In any case, if you're like me and you're a casual fan until the NFL is over, and you haven't looked at the NBA standings, you should, because it's totally nuts. What I never, ever would have guessed is not only are the Philadelphia 76ers at the top of the Atlantic Eastern Division, but that no one's close to them.
No,
when you look at that division is statistically the worst in basketball.
That's a horrible division.
I mean, Philadelphia's 114, Boston 9, and then there's just New Jersey, who is supposed to be good. They got Darren Williams, right?
Well, Lopez is out. That hurts.
New York, which is supposed to be good. I know Carmelo's out.
Yeah, they ain't got no point guard.
Toronto, which wasn't supposed to be good, but do you see that division getting better?
They ain't got no Bosh. I think this is more about strategy, particularly for Boston. Boston has an older team. The last thing they want to do is try and run with a bunch of younger teams trying to keep up to get playoff seeding. Boston's like, let's get to the playoffs, we'll be fine, and we'll go from there. I think for Philadelphia it matters because the more home games they get, the more likely chance they can advance and ultimately get beat by the Bulls or the Heat.
But Boston's not in the playoffs.
No. Boston is actually 7th. They're in the East. Yeah, they're 7th. They're a game and a half up on Milwaukee.
Oh, you know what? You're right. They are 7th.
There's a bigger shot when we get to the West. I'm talking about in a minute.
I keep forgetting because the other. All right. Anyway, let's go through the divisions. The Atlantic Division and the Eastern is nuts because who expected the 76ers to be this good? Maybe you're right. Maybe Boston and New Jersey are both just injury situations. That'll bear watching.
I think Boston will make the playoffs. I think Philly is this good. I know Will Till's going to hate me for saying this because listen, if you're from Philadelphia, I hate your city. But the point is...
y'all booed Santa Claus. Come on now.
I don't know of a single thing in Philadelphia I like besides Boyz II Men and
cheesesteaks. There you go.
Yeah. But Philly's team is athletic. They're long, and they can defend. If you watched any part of the second half of the Hawks game, the Hawks coach was right. They quit because they couldn't figure out what to do. I think Philly...
and they're the Hawks.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. But are they better than the Bulls? No. Are they better than the Heat? No. Would I trust them in the 7-game series over Boston?
I mean, I've been watching some Boston games, and they do not look good.
They don't.
They do not look good, and Kevin Garnett's act has gotten tired
because
really
he's old
quickly.
And he can't do it anymore.
Yeah, there's that whole, we were in a bar fight. It just underlined how not good he actually is. So anyway, then you've got the Central, where I think everyone predicted that the Bulls would be good.
Sure.
To me, the most intriguing question in the Central, and maybe in the entire Eastern Conference, is Indiana actually any good? Do they have a shot?
Yes. You've got Granger. You've got, what's his name? The point guard. Can't think of his name. You've got Hansbrough, who's a good role player.
Sure.
I think they signed West, who used to be in New Orleans with Chris Paul, which is added punch for them.
They've got a. I mean, they certainly seem to have a shot. They're depending on how you parse things, looks like they're 6th at the moment in the East.
I think they'll be fine. I think that I like them. They've got Roy Hibbert, so they've got a big center who can defend. They've got some players. They'll be fine. Derek Collinson is the point guard.
Sure, which brings us to the Southeast Division, where once again the Hawks are trying to pretend like they're good. We'll talk about them in just a second. The Heat are ahead just barely right now. Then the Hawks, and then Orlando, and
that's the interesting question.
Then the drop off. Miami 14 wins, Atlanta 14 wins, Orlando 12 wins. Next, Washington with 4, then Charlotte with 3. Those two teams aren't going anywhere.
No, Michael Jordan. You know those two teams. Does
the Southeast Division get 3 teams in the playoffs?
Only if Dwight Howard is not traded.
Okay.
If Dwight Howard
is there any hope he's going to be traded? I have not even heard a rumor about him in the last couple of weeks.
There was a rumor. There is a rumor. Apparently, the people in New York are already restless with the fact of Chandler and Stoudemire and Melo working. And the deal is Amari Stoudemire, there are concerns that Amari's knees are bad. Like, substantially bad.
Well,
and
yeah.
You know, we joked about this years ago when we were talking about Tim Duncan versus Stoudemire. And we all know how much I drool over Stoudemire at times. But the trade is Chandler and Stoudemire for Dwight Howard. And I kind of feel like if you're Orlando, you take that deal and run.
Well, at the moment, if you're Orlando, you're about to get nothing for him. So
you're going to get shacked.
You take any real deal that you can get, any kind of players that you can get. And if you're Orlando, you're not even concerned about winning the NBA championship.
But here's my question.
You're concerned about whether you can get people to come to the stadium.
Here's my question. I think if you do a deal for Amari and Chandler, you've got Amari. He's a quasi-star. People will come.
Does that work out in terms of money?
I don't know what the NBA situation was.
Well, it's crazy. Let's talk before we get out of the East. Two things.
I have another thing I want to. All
right. Well, the first thing is there's been some grumbling that because the Heat have already lost 5 games, that means they're not really a good team. I've watched them play a lot, and they are good. I don't know what people are thinking.
It's hate. Haters gonna hate Joe.
I mean, look, I haven't watched the Bulls enough to know whether or not they can beat the Heat in a 7-game series. The Bulls are clearly really good, but come on, the Heat are not going to lose down the stretch. I've heard this thing that they're going to look bad. They're going to be bad because they don't have enough depth, but they clearly have more depth this year than they did last year.
Miami's beating Chicago right now. Here's my thing about Miami: they were without Wade, and they were clearly fine.
Yeah,
Wade came back from a sprained ankle, and he looks awesome.
Yeah, fantastic.
That team is evil.
Yeah.
And if they lose games, it's only because they're bored. And it's probably only because LeBron and Bosh and Wade decided they were going to rest for a while.
LeBron is balling out of control this year. He looks like a man on a mission in a way that he did not last year.
He's a grown man. Yeah. Made a Braun.
All right. Here's the other question from the Southeast. I think we both agree the Heat are legit.
Yeah.
I still would take the Heat in the East.
Yeah, no
I can't even believe I'm asking you this question. But are the Hawks legit?
If by legit you mean are they a top 4 team in the East?
No,
yes.
I don't even care about that. I don't care about playoff positioning. If you're an Atlanta fan and you care about playoff positioning, you're an idiot.
Is your argument that
can they win a second round series in the playoffs for the first time in team history?
I'm gonna give you a scenario in which it can occur.
Okay.
And this is the only scenario that it occurs. Chicago and Miami must finish 2nd and 3rd, and Philly must finish 1st. And the Hawks will finish 4th because they're not winning their division.
Okay.
The Hawks, in theory, could beat Philadelphia in a 7-game series. They've got more experience across the board.
I mean, you just said that we can't figure out Philadelphia because they're long and they can defend.
No, I agree. But they're also young, and they've never been in the playoffs with that group of players. The Hawks have experience. Say what you want to say about Joe Johnson and Josh Smith. Horford will be back. They know how to be.
Is that his prognosis that he'll be back?
He'll be back like around the end of the season. So he'll be ready for the playoffs. That's the only scenario. I don't see them beating the... I know we beat the Bulls. I don't see them beating the Bulls in a 7-game series. And me and you both agree about the Hawks. The Heat. They ain't beating the Heat.
No, they're not beating the Heat.
So the question is, for me, I've tempered my expectations. So by legit, do I think they can force a 7-game series with one of those teams? They can force it with Philly. They can even force it with the Chicago. Miami is not close.
If the Hawks can end up in a second round series against the winner of the Atlantic Division, either Philly or Boston, they have a shot.
They have a shot.
And I hate to even say that because I know they're just going to stab me in the heart again. In fact, if you're an Atlanta fan, what you're waiting for right now is for them to crumble to the point where they don't even make the playoffs this year. But Josh Smith is trying harder, even though he's shooting less than 20% from threes, and he continues to take them.
If he could get to like 30.
No, he just needs to stop taking threes.
But he plays small.
Sure, they should have someone punch him in the face every time he takes a three. But he's trying hard, and so
that's the first.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. Let's talk about the West.
Hold on, before we go to the West.
Fair enough.
Here's something that I think we need to discuss, just because if it happens, it will be very interesting first round matchup. The Cleveland Cavaliers are a half game out of a playoff spot, and the only team they need to catch is Milwaukee. Does Cleveland make the playoffs?
I'll say no, and here's why. It's not because I think that...
You hate Kyrie Irving.
No, it's not because I think that Cleveland is bad, and I honestly wish them all the luck in the world. I understand as a fan of a team that has been stepped on repeatedly, that they have a tough lot in life being Cleveland fans. There's just too much talent in the rest of the East. It's not even Milwaukee. They're gonna, look at who's in for the playoffs right now. Philadelphia, who probably will stay in. Boston and New Jersey have got to be better than this based on their talent. When they get healthy, they're going to be hard to deal with. Chicago's not going anywhere. Indiana's probably not going anywhere. God help us, the Hawks and the Heat are probably not going anywhere. Orlando's only going anywhere if Howard gets traded. Does that leave any space for Cleveland to rise up?
It leaves Milwaukee in the AFC.
Is this where you're going? This is what I sense from you. What I sense from you is that what you're really hoping for is a first-round matchup between the Heat and Cleveland.
Yes.
All right.
Here's the thing. Cleveland, you're a terrible city, but I like you as people. I want LeBron to crush your hearts again because that made for great TV drama. It really did.
If for that to happen, not only does Cleveland have to make the playoffs, which is a tall order, but it means that the Heat have to end up with the best record in the East, which I'm not convinced they will, because I think they're actually playing smart in terms of resting their players.
Sure.
And I don't think they care if they have the best record in the East. I think all they care about is that they're in a decent position for the playoffs. I don't even think home court advantage matters to them in a conference final. And I think at the moment it's very likely that the Bulls will end up with the best record in the East.
Don't you think David Stern, his manipulative ways, would love for that? The ratings
honestly, I think Stern's parts. We'll talk about David Stern in a minute. Let's talk about the West.
Okay. Let's play a trivia game.
Okay.
If you are looking at the top 8 teams in the Western Conference, what don't you see?
If I am looking at the top 8 teams in the Western Conference.
Yes, if you're looking at the standings, just click on the standings.
Okay, what I don't see is the Lakers.
How shocking would it be if they don't?
Well, I'll tell you what's really interesting about the
David
West.
Stern's a hater.
Here's a little statistic for those of y'all that are into this sort of thing. And I know we're really early in the season, and it probably doesn't mean anything. But
sabermetrics.
No, yeah, I'm really shocked by this. In the East, there are 4 teams with 14 wins or more. In the West, there are 2. And those 2 are Oklahoma City and Denver, who are in the same division.
Yeah, Denver.
Now, you could have picked Oklahoma City. That team's legit.
How's that mental trade working?
Yeah, exactly. Great way to drag that out so you get absolutely the best possible outcome, Denver. But you could have said Oklahoma City. I wouldn't have said Denver. Now, on the other hand, the West has a ton of teams with 10 or more wins. If you just look at the Southwest Division, you've got San Antonio at 12, Houston at 12, Dallas at 12, Memphis at 10. If you look at the Northwest, you've got Oklahoma at 16, Denver at 14, Utah at 11, Portland at 12, and Minnesota at 9. That division is not necessarily full of great talent, but man, the parity in that division. But you don't see the Lakers, and in fact, you don't see the Lakers at the top of their division right now. The Clippers are technically, because of the fact that they haven't played as many games, probably just ahead of the Lakers.
That's an oddity in the schedule. The Lakers have played 20 games.
Yes.
The Clippers have played 16.
Yes. It's hard to imagine that continuing.
Here's my bold prediction for the West. The Pacific Division where the Lakers are in, only one team makes the playoffs. And I don't think it's the Lakers.
Wow, you think the Lakers aren't going to make the playoffs?
I don't think they make the playoffs. I think...
You buried the lead. The Lakers aren't going to make the playoffs. That's your pick.
I don't think the Lakers make the playoffs. Here's my reason for why they don't make the playoffs. And Joel Emile will attest to this. I think that there's only one person capable of scoring more than 15 points for the Lakers, and it's Kobe.
Yeah.
I don't think Bynum has people make this argument that Bynum is some sort of offensive genius, skilled center who, when healthy, will be amazing. You know, it's not happening.
What about Gasol, though? I mean, he's the guy, right? He periodically scores more than Kobe does.
I think he's in the wrong offense now, because in the triangle, he was fine because he could get the ball where he operates. Mike Davis, or Mike, whatever his name is, kind of runs this pick and roll system where his bigs have got to kind of make long range jump shots, and that's really not Gasol's game. I don't think they make the playoffs. I think I think the lead in the NBA at the end of the season will be, Miami 86, Chicago 84. The league will be the David Stern cost the Lakers chance of winning a championship.
I agree with that. Let me just add one more little piece into that.
Mm-hmm.
David Stern and the Lakers cost the Lakers a championship. Now, we've talked about this already. I've ranted about this for a little bit. Shout out to Joel Lemuel, who's been talking about this on Facebook like it's his job.
I think it is his job.
It may be his job. But Stern totally screwed the Lakers by nixing the Paul trade. Mm-hmm. Two things happened, one of which is entirely Stern's fault, the other one of which could be partially the Lakers' fault. Paul doesn't come to L.A.
Right.
And the other thing that happens is the Lakers somehow allow Lamar Odom to leave. And I think Odom's absence really hurts that team. Mm-hmm. You look at Odom's play right now and you wouldn't think that he was anything special, but in that Lakers system with the personnel that they had, mm-hmm. he freed up a lot of people. He forced people to come to follow him all over the place. He made Gasol's job a lot easier.
Absolutely.
He gave a mystique to Bynum because Bynum didn't get enough playing time, supposedly. Mm-hmm. He gave Bynum this mystique that if the Lakers were smart, they would have used as trade bait to trade mm-hmm. Bynum. But the Stern, no question, destroyed the Lakers. Now, we should take just a moment and talk about the full conspiracy domino theory that goes on with this.
Okay, this is some of my problem. I don't know how you feel, but I disagree with it.
Yeah, I think that all of the dominoes may not be correct, but let's shout out to Joel, who I hope you're listening to this part because this is all you. Here's Joel's argument, and it is an argument that many other Laker fans will make, and that is that if Paul had come to LA, that Howard would have followed, not because the Lakers had anything great to trade, but Howard would have forced his way onto the Lakers. Now, I don't know that I agree with that, because I'm wondering how the Lakers could possibly have made that work with the rules that continue to be in place with the new bargaining agreement where you have to get similar salary. Would Howard have taken a big enough pay cut? Did the Lakers have enough salary to give him back if they'd actually made that trade? And then I said at the time, and I still think it's true, that Kobe and CP3 and Howard all on the same team would have left you with depth problems that made last year's Miami Heat team look like the Kentucky Wildcats. The other conspiracy theory, which I think is more legitimate, we will probably never know, is did Stern set this whole thing up so there wouldn't be any more of these Miami Heat situations with three great players forcing their way onto one team? Because the result of this, regardless of what you think Stern's motivations were, the result of this is a lot more parity in terms of spreading the really good players out. Paul's at the Clippers, who really aren't ready for him in terms of really taking advantage of his talent. Howard's probably not going to end up in LA. He'll probably end up someplace else where he'll be the number 2 guy instead of the third guy that makes the triplets again. Regardless of what you think the motivations were, in the end, this has produced a lot more parity than would have been the case had Stern okayed the trade.
I agree with the second part, which is I think Stern doesn't want, and to be honest, I think David Stern's an idiot, but he needs to recognize that super teams is better than parity, and people.
Yeah, it's economically better.
People listen. If the Hawks were terrible, and they are, but if they were truly terrible, but there were every week I got to see the Lakers, the Bulls, the Heat, the Clippers, some of these mega teams show up at Phillips Arena, I would still go see those games,
right? And
I would still pay to see those games,
right? Is that a better situation than a bunch of teams that are kind of mediocre? I mean, when I look at a lot of the division standings, I'm unimpressed. I'm uninspired. I mean, let's take this moment to talk about the rest of the division. You tell me what you think about this. Northwest in the West. Oklahoma City not going anywhere, right?
No. Like, unless Westbrook and Durant can't coexist.
And do you agree with me that it seems like they're serious about keeping that team together?
Yeah. They've only got 2 players they need to worry about.
I'm a little shocked about that. Denver.
I have an opinion on Denver that I think that you don't agree with. I think Denver's a really good team. I think they're a good team. I think the one thing that a lot of teams like Denver has, and they have a lot of interchangeable parts,
right?
That the drop-off is not that bad from what comes off the bench. Now, do they not have a superstar? No. But they've got like 8 or 9 guys that can play in the league. and they can score.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I haven't watched a lot of Denver games this year, but and I feel the same exact way. I look at Denver at 14, I look at Utah at 11, and Portland at 12.
I actually didn't realize that Utah had 11 wins.
Yeah, and I kind of have to say to myself, amongst those three teams, do I even have a gut feeling about which one or ones of them are any good? Not really.
Well,
Denver's got to be good. They've won 14 games.
Portland has survived the unfortunate Brandon Roy situation, but they've got Aldridge and they've got players. Utah surprises me.
Yeah.
Because I don't know who they have. And they're probably like the one team that probably falls back a little bit. But when you look at the Northwest, and you'll get to the Southwest, here's an easy transition. In theory, you could have 3 teams from each one of those divisions, maybe more, make the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, if the playoffs are over today, then there's 4 from the Northwest that are making it, and
3 from the Southwest.
It looks like 3 from the Southwest.
Yeah.
And then the Clippers, which is crazy. Now, will that happen? I don't know. But anyway, let's talk about the Southwest. You've got San Antonio, Houston, and Dallas all at 12. Memphis at 10.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of shocked that Houston is that good because, again, I just don't know who they've got.
They got Kevin Martin. They've got some good role players in Scola and a couple guys.
The host of people who are going to be traded for Chris Paul.
They got Lowry, I think, who's playing. He's having an all-star season at point guard for them. I don't know if they hang around, but they could hang around for like 8th. I think that here's my thing. I think that any team, maybe Utah is probably the weakest, but of all the other teams that we see that have double-digit wins, I like their starting 5 more than what the Lakers have because I have no clue who the Lakers are starting at point guard and at small forward. I understand that Derek Fisher has to start, but he wouldn't start for any other franchise at the point guard position other than the Lakers right now.
All right, here's the last question then for me anyway about the NBA. We are in a really strange inversion. Just a few years ago, the only thing anyone could talk about is how the West was better than anybody in the East. My question for you is there anyone out of the West that you see contending with the top teams from the East?
I think that if Oklahoma City is lucky enough to have someone other than the Heat win, they've got a really good shot. Because when you have Durant, he's probably, and this is a conversation we should have maybe later, the second best player in the NBA right now behind LeBron James. I know people are like, no, Kevin Durant's going to be better. No, stop it. Stop. Mike Dick, stop it. But in a 7-game series against Chicago, Westbrook can handle roles. There is nobody for the Bulls that can handle Durant.
Yeah, and you've got at least 2 people who can handle. Gosh, now I've totally blanked on the.
Not Carlos Boozer. Did you just make
No. I was going to say at least 2 people on the Heat that can play solid defense against anybody that Oklahoma City's got, including Durant.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wade, LeBron.
Wade and LeBron, and they may even have. Battier has been playing really well on defense, so it's possible you've got 3 guys. Now, let me just have a little caveat there and say that when you say handle Kevin Durant, what you mean is he's only scoring 30.
Right.
Right, you can only limit him, but the Heat have got enough defense that they can play with Oklahoma City. And
they can force him to make tough shots.
Is there any? Okay, fine, because Oklahoma City's legit. They can score. Anyone that plays them in the finals is going to have trouble with that. Is there anyone else in the West?
Not even close.
All right, at the moment, I agree with you.
The 3 best teams are head and shoulders above everybody else.
I can't believe San Antonio is still doing as well as they are, and I love San Antonio, but
you love Tim Duncan.
Wake Forest. Demon Deeks. All right. Fair enough. What's next?
Right. So we're going to talk about a fellow debater. Sorry. We're actually going to talk about Skip Bayless. And one of the things I did not want to do with this podcast was to bash kind of like commentators. But apparently we're about to do that soon. Oh, wait. We skipped something.
Okay.
It's time for the joke part of the show. we need to rank the worst commentators in the NBA.
Yeah, let's again shout out to Joel Lemuel for coming up with this idea. This is one of the best ideas in terms of just sports talk I've heard in a while. Joel points out correctly that there's a whole bunch of guys that do television commenting on the NBA who are themselves former NBA players. That's number one. Number two, a lot of these guys are terrible. So number three, the question is, if you were to form a starting five out of these guys that are either currently or formerly commentating on the NBA on television, and that starting five were to be ranked, you have to do them by position, and be ranked in terms of the worst NBA commentators, the worst of all time. Who is that starting five position by position?
Is Mark Jackson still commentating?
I think he doesn't matter, current or former.
Oh,
so he's eligible, right? I think the question for this is at a couple of positions, but let's start at the two easiest positions to talk about.
So are we putting the starting five together? Are we putting the starting five together under the assumption to build the best team?
No, you have to the worst commentators of all time. Starting five.
All right. So at point guard for me.
No. I'm going to start at the. I don't even want to start there because that's where the real debate is. Let's get the quick ones over with.
Center Shaq. Next.
No. Bill Laimbeer.
No.
Bill Laimbeer.
Shaq is so much worse.
Throw it down, big man. Throw it. Not Bill Laimbeer. I shouldn't even say Bill Walton.
No,
I'm sitting
Bill
here
Walton.
looking at my list.
How dare you, Bill
Bill
Walton's
Walton.
awesome.
Throw it down, young big man. Throw it down.
No.
The worst hyperbole ever.
Shaq didn't even have a hyperbole. Shaq is like, you know what I should do?
Well, and I want Shaq to be better because I think he's funny in a lot of situations, but he's not funny when he's commentating.
That's the biggest shock to me is that he's not funny.
Yeah, but I'm gonna go Bill Walton over
Shaq.
Shaq. Laimbeer is a power forward. We'll talk about him in a second.
All right, hold on. So I'm gonna put this down. So you have.
I got Bill Walton, worst center commentator ever.
Walton.
Yep. And you got Shaq.
I got Shaq. That's easy for me.
All right. Then
power forward.
The power forward is surprisingly difficult because there just aren't a lot of them that do commentating. You've got Tom Tolbert. You've got
I don't know what it is.
yeah, I know he's bald. He's big white guy.
Good for him.
You've got Laimbeer, who I actually like a lot. So I think he's not even in the conversation.
Barkley is not bad.
Barkley is, you can hate him, but he's still really funny and knows what he's talking about in a lot of circumstances. Who's the guy that played for the Kings?
Chris Webber.
He's not smart.
He's terrible.
He is not smart.
Yeah, I found my list.
And then we've got Kevin McHale.
Yeah, it's Webber. It's not close.
You think it's Webber? I think Tolbert can't win because he just isn't very significant.
I don't even know who Tolbert is.
Yeah.
And you may have a point that he wins because of that. I honestly don't know.
But Chris Webber is not smart. What's surprising to me after having watched Chris Webber play, and I was in San Francisco when Chris Webber came to Golden State, and it was a dark day. And I'll rant about that later, about how that was the moment where the Golden State franchise really tanked. But Chris Webber is not smart. And so maybe he gets that. All right, so now you've got...
So wait, you're taking Tolbert?
I'll take Webber.
Okay.
I think Tolbert can't win because he cannot be the worst because he's just not very significant.
Yeah, no one knows who that is.
It's kind of shocking that more big power forwards haven't been television commentators.
No,
in the NBA.
like...
I mean, because you've got to think Malone would be awful.
Malone would be terrible.
He would be awful. He's got to get on television just so we can see how awful it would be.
But yeah, you're right. There aren't a lot of
Not a lot of them. All right. I think it's very difficult to tell the difference between shooting guards and small forwards anymore. But at small forward, here are some of the possibilities. Jalen Rose, Bruce Bowen. I don't know if you call him a small forward or a shooting guard.
Okay,
he's probably a shooting guard. Jamal Mashburn. Chris Mullen actually played small forward a lot.
Yeah, Mullen is solid.
You've got Tim Legler. I don't know. He was probably a shooting guard. These days it's hard to tell.
That's fine.
So I don't know. Among that group, who stands out to you?
Give me the list one more time.
You've got Jalen Rose, who is awful.
You know what?
Who is an idiot.
I'm gonna take Rose, and I'm not because he's bad, but that's a solid group that you just mentioned, in my opinion. So of that group, he may be the worst. I'll take Rose. I'm sorry, man. I got the Fab Five going.
Mullen is
Mullen is solid.
deadly.
Mullen is solid.
I mean, look, I hate Jalen Rose. I hate him because I think he's terrible at his job. He says dumb stuff, and because ESPN has him on all the time.
They do.
But Mullen is a disaster. If you think that Mullen is a small forward, which is how where he played for a lot of his career, especially at Golden State, he may be the worst. He sounds like someone has hit him in the head way too many times.
I've only heard Chris Mullen a few times, but the few times I heard him, he was fine.
It's disastrous. It
You
really
taking
is. I'll take Mullen. I can't believe I'm saying that because I hate Jalen Rose. But
All right. Shooting guard. For me, this is no contest. It's Bruce Bowen, and it ain't close.
Bruce Bowen's pretty bad.
I hate that bow tie.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Steve Smith.
But I like Steve Smith. Steve Smith's okay.
He's solid.
I mean, was he a small forward? I don't know.
He was shooting. Actually, you know what? No, Steve Smith was a point guard. He was a point guard. I forgot.
I mean, who else do you have at shooting guard?
Who's on TNT?
Because there's a ton of point guards.
Yeah.
Ton of point guards.
I'm gonna take Bowen just because the lack of depth.
All right.
There's not much out there.
At shooting guard, we have people like Greg Anthony,
Love Greg Anthony,
Tim Hardaway,
UNLV shutout,
Avery Johnson,
Oh,
Mark Jackson.
oh, done. Boom.
Wait.
No.
Because you haven't heard the one that sparked the debate for me.
Fine.
Magic Johnson.
Dude, this Mark Jackson is not close.
See, now Joel wants to go with Magic Johnson because Magic can't talk. And I agree that Magic can't talk. And it hurts me to say that because when I was a kid, there was no athlete who I wanted to be more than Magic Johnson.
Okay.
Because of how amazing he was and the presence and the charisma that he had. I will still make the argument that he might be the greatest basketball player of all time. Mm-hmm. But Mark Jackson is gotta wear the douchebag crown.
Hand down, man down.
Mama, there goes that man.
I really wanted to reach through the TV and kill him.
Oh my God, I wanted to kill him. The best thing about him being hired as a coach is I don't have to listen to his dumb ass anymore.
No, because they put the microphone on him and when they play all the time on ESPN because they're the late team.
He is the worst. I'm sorry. I know Magic can't talk, but Magic is affable. He's charismatic. He smiles and you like him. He seems like a decent guy. Mm-hmm. Mark Jackson, I just want to punch him in the face.
He's got too many sayings.
Oh.
The only reason I enjoyed the NBA was because of, what's his name's brother? The coach of Orlando was his the brother.
Oh, Van Gundy. I like Van Gundy.
I love Van Gundy.
I like Van Gundy a lot, and I like him even better since they got rid of his douchebag partner.
Agreed. All right, now let's go to Skip Bayless.
For those of you who aren't aware of this, I'm a debate coach as part of my professional job.
Yes.
Eric debated at the school while I was a debate coach at Georgia State, so we both have extensive backgrounds in debate.
Let me give a little bit further qualification. Joe Bellon qualified for the national championship, the elimination rounds. I believe you got to quarters?
No, I got to octos.
Octos.
Worst 5-0 decision ever, by the way.
We'll
Shout out to Baylor for the worst decision ever.
Yeah, we'll have an entire podcast about debate. But he debated for a national championship. It came close. I qualified for the NDT twice and made it to, I think, octos or double octos at Cedar Nats one year. We know debate. If there's one thing that we know, it's how to debate and what a debate looks like. What Skip Bayless does on a daily basis is asinine. And it is annoying. At first it was kind of funny because he was controversial. Now there's these I hate Skip Bayless things all over the place. Listen, I cannot be rational and keep a PG-13 rated podcast. So I will defer to Joe as he will make sense. And I will just go, But seriously, Skip Bayless must end. The act is dumb. It's played out. They enable him. The insanity that goes on around him. If Skip Bayless had as much talent as his brother does when it comes to cooking.
By the way, his brother is Rick Bayless, who is a phenomenal chef.
Right.
Winner of Iron Chef Masters.
Yes. If he had that, then maybe he would be much easier to listen to. He is a joke with a capital J.
Look, for a long time I said, and it still may be true, that Skip Bayless was a genius and that he was the Simon Cowell of sports commentating because he had such a great sense of when to turn heel on important issues that he would make arguments about things a lot and then he would just pick issues and do what they call playing television, where he would just turn heel and say ridiculous things. You know, if you want to go back to the NFL offseason, he literally made the argument that Vince Young was the most important free agent in the NFL offseason.
How did it work out?
Yeah. It's indefensible, but at the time, and still to a certain degree, I thought it was brilliant because it's like what Simon Cowell used to do on American Idol, which is he would pick a moment where the show is getting boring and just go after one of the contestants for no good reason, but it would create drama. Now, here's the problem. That is not a debate show. They don't have something they debate about. It is a piece of theater where they decide ahead of time which issues they're going to agree on and which issues they're going to disagree on. And they do it all for theater. That's the first problem. It is not a debate. It annoys all of us in debate when they say that it is a debate. If any decent debate coach or debater with a sports knowledge got on that show and it wasn't scripted, it would be a beating. Because Skip Bayless is not a debater, so they shouldn't call it that. But I have a more fundamental problem.
Well, hold on. I do want to add this last little bit about Skip Bayless. My issue with Skip Bayless, because occasionally he will say something that actually makes sense, and you kind of forget that he was actually a legit journalist at one point. My problem with him is that I think he takes things personal, and I think he is more than disrespectful. And I think if there wasn't a camera or a microphone, or even like this national spotlight, like if it was like a regular radio talk show host, someone would smack the crap out of him.
Yeah.
Because, for example, I think what Chris Bosh said on the show is very telling. And the problem with Skip Bayless is that he doesn't realize when he's crossed the line.
Yep. He crosses the line a lot these days.
The scary Bosh one, or the Chris Bosh, or whatever the term he does about Chris Bosh, the fact that it offends his family, and then Skip Bayless says, "Well, I don't care," is an instant reason to smack him.
All right. Well, I think it goes further than that. I'm willing to go further.
But that's just something that bothers me.
I think they have made that show racist. And here's what I think. They are lining people up against Skip Bayless who are very frequently black and many of them bad. Chris Broussard is good at what he does. I like him. I thought a lot of his statements about a lot of important issues about race within the last year have been very, very smart. When I first heard him, I didn't think he was that good, but I've really come to like him. But Jamel Hill is a moron. Absolutely. And the other dude they have who can't talk, that's up against the one who said Atlanta was the worst sports town ever and made a bunch of bad arguments. That guy's an idiot. And I'm a little concerned about the fact that they constantly have these black commentators up against Skip, and they don't pick good black commentators. They don't pick smart black commentators, of which, by the way, there are quite a few on ESPN. They pick it's almost a setup to have the supposedly smart white guy step all over the black commentators who can't defend themselves. I don't like it. It's like watching the Harlem Globetrotters anyway, and I don't care what the race of the other person is, because they fix it so that Skip wins and the other people don't object. But the racial component is really beginning to bother me. It's one of the reasons I don't watch it anymore.
I have definitely taken it back to watching it. You and I both agree. We've had this conversation about Skip Bayless and ESPN and race on that show. But I will say part of the problem, or part of me that prevents me from being that upset about it, is I have a lot of respect for the one who's on all the time. He was just on Wednesday. Stephen A. Smith.
Yes.
I have a lot of respect for Stephen A. Smith. And Stephen A. Smith, I think almost apologetically comes to the defense of him to kind of say it's not racist. Because I think he's heard that argument from a lot of people who are on the street.
I don't even think Skip is racist. I think the show's producers are.
No. My argument has always been that I thought Skip was racist.
By the way, if that show was Skip versus Stephen A. Smith every day, I would find it more compelling because it would be 100% theater. Because anything that Stephen A. Smith is involved with is automatically theater. Because he's doing a character. He is the Stephen Colbert of sports talk.
But I think my problem with them at that point, when it's both theaters, that it annoys me to a point where I can't take it. Like at some point, it becomes absurd to make certain arguments.
Sure,
but
which I don't know why they feel compelled to make. LeBron is not good arguments, for example.
Like for example, if you did not do a Tebow part every other comment or
it's got to stop.
That has to stop. I'm tired of Tebow, but I agree with you that here's what I'm gonna say. I think Skip Bayless is disrespectful, and I think that there is a difference between being between asking hard questions and being disrespectful. I don't think that I think sometimes he revels in the fact that some of these people lose when they come in, like Terrell Suggs. I thought he was completely disrespectful to.
But you need to watch out. Terrell Suggs is a grown man.
Terrell Suggs should punch him in the face. But frankly, that show has gotten tired, and hopefully someone will pull the plug on it. But because
they've got to blow it up.
Because
it needs a Jon Stewart Crossfire moment for those of you who are where Jon Stewart went on Crossfire and destroyed the show by calling them out for what they were, and it ended the show. They need a Jon Stewart Crossfire moment on 1st and 10, or it's terrible.
All right, let's go to something more happier, and let's not talk about Skip, dumbass. Let's talk about our Super Bowl picks.
We need to stop and talk about the AFC NFC championship games for just a second.
Listen. We had Zoe on like 2 hours ago. We don't need to discuss this.
Look, let's just talk. First of all, both games were really close, and so while I think it's hysterical that my 9-year-old daughter housed you, and we won't be forgetting that anytime soon.
Points? You know what?
I see an interesting birthday cake in your future, but in any case, I don't really fault either one of us for those games. Although I do think that there's one thing that I have to say I got completely wrong, and that is Joe Flacco. I said if Joe Flacco had to win the game for the Ravens, that they were in deep trouble. Joe Flacco had to win the game for the Ravens, and he performed very well. He was not spectacular, but he performed very well.
Proves my Flacco, we should take him over Matt Ryan.
I don't think you've ever made that argument, and you certainly did not make that argument at the time during that draft.
How dare you? How dare I said you should trade down.
No, that's a lie.
Oh my God!
How do you lie like that?
Wow!
You wanted the running back that Oakland traded.
How can you?
That Oakland picked.
No. I said we should trade down.
You did not say we should pick Joe Flacco.
I said we should trade down. We can get Flacco because we had 2 picks. Remember, we got Sam Baker in the first round of that draft. Same draft. How
you
dare
never said that at the time.
I can't believe you.
Whatever. I said Joe Flacco couldn't play well, and he played really well. I was totally wrong about that. The other thing that I didn't call out, but at the time I thought would happen and didn't happen is I thought the 49ers had an offense. And I'll say this, the New York Giants defense is obviously good. Last week I questioned whether or not they were good. They are obviously good. But even though they were playing well, and you have to give them all the props in the world, all the respect in the world, the 49ers looked lost on offense in the fourth quarter. In fact, in the whole second half. And they were not ready. Great defense. They put a hurting on Eli. They stopped a bunch of the things the Giants did well. Their run game was really not there at all. But they looked lost on offense.
I think we all got an inflated sense of them because they were playing a Saints defense that I felt was not very good.
You must be right.
It was New England Patriot-esque at times.
You mean regular season New England Patriot-esque?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what I got wrong, and I don't even feel like I got this part wrong. I just think that the Ravens need a better kicker. Well, no, not even that. Let's not talk about their kicker because there's a play before the kick where Lee Evans has the touchdown in his hands.
Yes,
and he drops it.
Well, he did not drop it. That is incorrect. The defensive player made a great play on the ball. And Lee did not do the things you're supposed to do as a wide receiver in the end zone to hold on to the ball. Because you know that swipe is coming. You know it's coming.
Sure.
And you're supposed to hang on to it. But if you watch that replay in real time, that was just a great defensive play. Admittedly, Lee didn't do what he was supposed to do. But that was a great defensive play.
No, I hear you. But it still falls on Lee Evans. You don't want to have
it doesn't
the game
just
on the line.
fall on him.
No, but you don't want to lose the game to your kicker. It's a catch he should have made.
Well, and look, you can fault the kicker, and obviously you should. That's a kick you're supposed to make.
Sure.
But we have no idea what would have happened in overtime. And it wasn't as though the Ravens were dominating.
But the touchdown would have won the game.
Now, the touchdown would have won the game. That's absolutely true. But you can't... I look at that play, and I think it's really unfair. And I said this on Facebook at the time. I'll say it again. I feel bad for all you Ravens fans out there. I'm not a fan of the Ravens. I was not rooting for them in that game. There's a lot of things about the Ravens I don't like, but... no fan base should have to go out like that. That was a terrible way to go out. You should have at least had overtime, and then you could have said, well, we played our best, and and it wasn't enough. But that was a rough game.
And I feel bad about for the 49ers.
Yep.
I feel bad about Williams, the punt returner for the 49ers.
Yep.
You know.
Who that was not his job.
No, that was Ted Ginn's job. He was out there doing his best, and he made essentially what rookies do. He made a rookie mistake, took his eyes off the ball. It happens. It doesn't mean that the Giants were that much better than the 49ers.
Although the Giants had an offense and the 49ers didn't. Look, Eli played out of control in that game. He played really, really well.
No. Vernon Davis is a grown man.
He is. No, that's true. And the fact that they didn't target Vernon Davis in the second half of that game virtually at all is part of why they look so lost. You've got to know who's good. Mm-hmm. You've got to know who's good.
There's only one. But now maybe the Giants keyed in on a little bit better double coverage or something.
But once again, I didn't think the Giants would play well, and they did. And there's just their defense is for real. Eli Manning is a good quarterback.
Can I just get a little bit of credit for saying that the team that beats the Falcons goes to the Super Bowl? I had that.
Although you didn't pick the Giants.
No,
so
I picked them twice.
I guess.
No, I picked them twice.
I guess you didn't really have the courage of your convictions there.
Absolutely not. So, who are you taking in the Super Bowl?
Well, look, I said this last time. I said that if the Giants won, that you might very well see me pick them in the Super Bowl, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm picking the Giants. I've picked against them for the last time. I picked against them versus the Falcons in my heart. Although I didn't really try to analyze that game in my head because I didn't want to know the answer. Mm-hmm. I've picked against them with my head twice, and I will not make that mistake again. I think they are on the move. And I'll make one other argument that I think I would be feeling bad about picking the Giants, were it not for this little piece of information. And that is that Gronkowski's ankle appears to be significantly worse than they said that it would be. And from what I understand from the latest reports, the injury that he has is not one that's going to heal by the Super Bowl. And I think without Gronkowski, and given how good the New York Giants defense is, I think that they're going to win. I think the Patriots are going to have a tough time.
Here's me taking...
And by the way, I'm automatically losing because I'm picking against Zoe. But nevertheless, go on.
It's true. I think the Gronkowski injury is big, and I want to know how he's going to be before the game. I think you could be right. If there's no Gronkowski, or even a severely limited Gronkowski, there's a problem. But here's what I'm going to take. I think I've learned my lesson from Zoe. I'm going to take the Pats, and here's why. I like both quarterbacks in this game, and it could very well be a shootout. But I think that something has happened with the Patriots defense that they've gotten substantially better. Now,
Belichick started paying attention.
He should. God knows he should. But I think Brady is on a mission. Because I think Brady wants to go out as probably the best quarterback to ever throw a football. And if he wins this championship, you will be hard-pressed to find someone.
He's in the conversation. And Joe Montana are, and that's the conversation.
I hate Joe Montana. So... he can't be in the conversation. However, if I will say this, I am picking the Pats. I think the Pats will win. However, if Eli Manning wins this Super Bowl, he is better than his brother.
That's ridiculous.
How dare you talk when I'm talking?
That's ridiculous.
Eli will be better than his brother.
He'll have more rings.
Well, he will be better than his brother. What part of my stuttering? And I think for my generation, he may be in the conversation of top 5 quarterback.
Well, I don't even know what that means because I'm not sure.
Well, I'm referring to like the last, say, 20 years.
Okay, that's ridiculous. That's totally ridiculous.
Name their top 5 quarterbacks.
I'm not even going to get... Look, let me just start with this before we even
go. If Peyton's in the top 5, that means in the top 5.
No, it doesn't.
I say if Peyton's in right now.
Judging a career based on Super Bowl rings, which is what you would be doing, is foolish. At that point, you're saying that Trent Dilfer and Peyton Manning are the same quarterback.
No, you are missing my point.
Peyton Manning has been the league MVP 4 times.
Okay, let's talk about this for a second.
Here's what I will grant you. All right, before you go on,
mm-hmm.
It would appear that Eli is a better postseason quarterback than Peyton. Now, it's hard to tell because football is a team game. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of other things going on, and Peyton sure never had the defense that Eli's been having. Peyton had a defense that was supposedly bend, don't break, and mostly broke. When Peyton had a good running game, they did well. Eli has turned out to be a better player than I ever thought he would be. And he may be a better postseason player than Peyton Manning. But to say that he's a better player all around is kind of crazy.
When you play football games, for those of you who follow soccer, you play to win the game. But you also play to win Super Bowls.
Because if you play to win the game, you're in trouble. Because Peyton's got a better winning percentage and more wins.
Here's my thing. If we're separating, then I think obviously stuff that Peyton has done in the regular season matters. Clearly. He's got how many MVPs? 4?
4.
And that's more of a function of, as we saw this year, he should be the MVP this year.
Yeah.
Just because of how bad that team was.
It's the Jordan rules, right? I mean, when was Jordan not the MVP? He should have been the MVP. Mm-hmm. Peyton should probably have been the MVP this year just because of what happened.
Right. But here's my point. I think that and this is how I evaluate kind of most things, so kind of follow me a little bit. I think the difference between Peyton, the way he plays in the regular season, and Eli, the way he plays in the regular season, is less than the difference between Eli in the postseason and Peyton in the postseason. I think Peyton, I'm saying that gap is bigger.
You're saying the postseason gap is bigger
than the regular season gap.
All right.
And look, my argument
I'll make one last argument because I think this is a silly argument, but I'll make one last argument about this.
He would have beaten Brady twice in the Super Bowl.
And everyone concedes that beating Brady the first time was a fluke.
What?
Because the receiver had gum on his helmet, essentially. What? That was, and admittedly, Eli's escapability was important in that game, but Peyton Manning, and this is the argument that is not answerable, and partially because I'll concede it's kind of a not disprovable argument.
Skip Bayless would argue.
Peyton Manning changed the position of quarterback. He essentially invented a mode of play for the quarterback that had not existed prior to him, which almost everyone is trying to imitate now, where the quarterback walks up to the line of scrimmage in a no-huddle situation, and then proceeds to have a virtual huddle at the line of scrimmage, and the quarterback becomes a de facto on-field offensive coordinator. Virtually every team that has any kind of decent quarterback is trying to make that happen, and that is something that Peyton Manning invented. But for Peyton Manning, Eli Manning would not be as good of a quarterback. You know, and I'm not even talking about growing up and throwing the ball to each other and all that, because I think it's unfair to compare them based on their brotherhood and their genetics, right? But Peyton Manning changed the position in a way that we're not going to really appreciate for another 10 or 15 years. After he's retired, maybe we can start talking about it.
Here's what I will say about that. I think that is a testament to what's between his two ears.
He's smart.
He's very smart when it comes to football, as far as I'm concerned. Because the fact that there is not another quarterback like that in the NFL. There are a lot of quarterbacks who can handle the no-huddle. No one calls a game like Peyton.
No.
And wherever he goes, he will be the offensive coordinator.
I don't think that's what he'll do, but whatever.
No. Wherever he goes, he will be the
But you're persuaded that the postseason gap is so big that it overcomes the minor regular season gap.
My thing is, because at the end of the day, for
how much longer has Peyton been in the league?
Maybe 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. Before I forget this, let me go back to one more thing because we're running a little bit late. But I want to say this: I picked the Giants for the Super Bowl.
I got Pats.
If you are
not close,
a Patriots fan, here's what should be encouraging to you. First of all, I think Tom Brady feels terrible about the way he played in the last game.
He does.
And I think if that's what you mean by he's on a mission, then you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, sorry about that.
The girl's calling Joe.
My page is blowing up.
Hello.
In any case, the second thing is this. You've got a week off. Instead of having 1 week to get ready, you've given Belichick 2 weeks to get ready. Mm-hmm. And between those two coaches, I fear Belichick's prowess much more than I fear Coughlin's prowess. Coughlin may be a better game coach. He may be able to get him inspired for the game. Belichick, you give him 2 weeks in the lab, I would be worried if I were a Giants. But the Gronkowski thing worries me. And just like you can say, well, Brady feels bad about playing the way he played last week, you can also say he played poorly last week for Brady. And there's no telling that he'll be able to do any better against a defense that may be exactly as good, if not better.
I will say this. If you're a Giants fan, the thing that I think gives you confidence is this. You beat a better offense in 2007. And this team that is playing now is not nearly as good as that team in 2007. But I think the Giants team is pretty much the same. And there's no reason why if you couldn't do it in 2007, you can't do it now. But I think that they don't match up well with the tight ends, especially if Gronkowski's healthy. That's why I'm picking the Pats. Right. I reserve my right to change my opinion of Gronkowski.
Well, we're coming up on an hour. So as much as we could keep doing this, and in other cases without being recorded have done this for another hour, I think that's about it. Thanks for listening, those of you who are listening. Tell your friends.
Tell your friends.
Tell your enemies.
We really want to thank you guys for listening to us. Even if you didn't listen, just click it and just like it. We count the views.
There speaks the marketing major. All right, kids. Thanks for listening. We'll be back. I'm not sure exactly when we'll be back, but we'll be back either right before the Super Bowl or right after it to let you know how things went.
All right. Talk to you soon.